Oh man. First off, I want to apologize to everybody. I was supposed to have George Riley Panagakis show up. He wasn't able to make it. I kind of had to. I just found out a half an hour ago, so I had to kind of change things up. I apologize. I wasn't trying to mislead anybody. One of the hardest things about doing YouTube is that sometimes when you have guests, they aren't able to show up. So I apologize to everybody. But I'm here. I'm going to talk wild card weekend. Oh man, oh God, I got the B in the Back Talk brothers, the great one, the talent, Gooch. Yes, Perry, welcome, brother. North of the border says, "Hey Dan, how you know what? I'm a little disappointed. I was really looking forward to George coming on tonight. I did have the show set up to kind of interview him back and forth. Wanted to get his opinions on some of the playoff games. Friday, I'm still working. I'm trying to get Pete with Pete's Takes, Dolphins fans to come on. That way, Chiefs versus Dolphins preview, because he DM'd me and he said, "Hey, I think we got a shot against you guys," and I think they do too. So I'm going to show you some of the things I had signed up, but there is some big NFL news. I had a Black Monday show, and I was really disappointed because I really wanted, I really wanted something like this to happen yesterday, but Mike Vrabel was fired by the Tennessee Titans. I think it's a surprise. I also think it's a mistake. But I remember when they hired Mike Vrabel. I'm drawing Mike McGlinchey. I believe it's Mike McGlinchey. Was the head coach. He beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the wild card round at Arrowhead. They were down 21-3. Came back, won that game. I think it was 23-21, 24-21, something like that. And no, it was 22-21. And I thought that after that, you beat a team on the road after being down 21-3 at halftime, and you do that in the playoffs. That's good enough to keep you hired on. It wasn't. So they hired Vrabel. I said it was a mistake. Vrabel proved me wrong. Mike Munchak, yeah. And I thought it was a mistake. I said it was a mistake hiring Vrabel instead of Munchak. But Mike Vrabel, I think, instantly goes to the top of the list as somebody who is going to be, of all the head coaches that are available, coordinators, college guys, I think Vrabel's number one. I easily think that this would be the best hire. It doesn't matter what kind of a team you have. If you hired an offensive coach, a defensive coach, like usually what happens is that you're usually, if you hire a defensive coach, usually you want to go with an offensive coach. You want to make a difference or a change. A team like LA that went with Brandon Staley, I would go ahead and I would hire Vrabel, even though he's also a defensive-minded coach. That's a move that I would make in a heartbeat if you're able to get them. And I don't know what Vrabel wants to do. There was some talk that the Patriots owner Robert Kraft requested that or said something along the lines of if you could choose anybody to replace Belichick, it would be Vrabel. So I really wanted that on last week. I am going to show you some of Riley's picks, and then I'm going to go over the wild card games myself. This is what I was going to have him go over. And by the way, this is why I consider a George, a.k.a. Riley. I don't have the link to his Twitter because I had to just change this on the fly. But if you DM me on social media, I'm going to play around here with some of the settings. But if you go ahead and hit me up on social media, I can send you a link. He's just been exploding on Twitter. He's doing a lot of different things. So it's a big, he's turned into kind of a big deal this year. As you can see here, he bets thousands of dollars, and I got it blocked here, but he went, let me see if I can change that. So there you go. He went 11-4 the first couple of weeks of the season here. He ended up winning several $1,000s, but all these bets are bets that he makes before the games are over. He posts all this stuff on Twitter. So if you're in sports betting at all, this is a no-brainer to follow this guy. As you can see here, he makes $1,000 bets, post wins and losses. One, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, he's the number one NFL handicapper in the country. Even though he's not able to come on my show, hopefully I can get him to come back on at a later point in time. Like I said, when you do YouTube, one of the most frustrating things is you get people that say they're going to come on and then they cancel last minute, or I've had a few people just no show. I've heard some weird stuff. Perry says if the Pats were smart, they would be on the throne with Vrabel. Vrabel will be a top three for this job, or top three any job. Absolutely, Vrabel is easily the number one. I think he's the number one candidate, to be honest with you. And there is a possibility that you could just flip flop. Vrabel could come to New England, and Tennessee may want to go with Belichick. I'm not exactly sure what Tennessee's going to do, to be honest with you. I'm kind of thinking that they're looking to go with an offensive mind. Ben Johnson, who's the Lions offensive coordinator, is probably the hottest candidate before Vrabel was fired. That is a move that's definitely possible. Be very interested to see what Tennessee's doing here. Just posting some of Riley's picks here. And then one thing I wanted to point out is he had some really good bets at the beginning of the year. He made some really good money. Carolina under 6.5. He was really high on Arizona under 5.5. He made multiple bets. He had the Titans under 7.5. Bryce Young under 22.5 passing touchdowns. This was a no-brainer. Bryce Young under 3,650.5 passing yards. He bet only 500 there. A lot of Chiefs fans bristled when I reposted this about Mahomes under 46.50.5. I thought it was a smart bet, even though he went for over 5,000 last year. Dallas wins the division. Green Bay in the playoffs nailed both of these. Arizona under 5. The comeback player of the year hasn't been announced yet. So, again, I apologize because I just found out that he wasn't coming on about 30 minutes ago. So I had this plan to be more of a question and answer and not going over the wild card games. But things like this happen, it's one of the more frustrating things about doing YouTube is sometimes you got to kind of deal with things like this. Think Belichick should just retire. He's got nothing more to prove, do TV or spend time with his family. I'm not disagreeing with you, Perry. One of the things I keep hearing is that he really wants the number one. He really wants that number one all-time coaching wins title that Don Shula has, and I don't know the number, but it was thought to be if he had 2 winning seasons. I know he's over 300. Shula's at 325, but I know that's the number he wants to hit, and because he had a bad year this year, he'll need to go 2 more years with New England or another team in order to get that. And I know that that's the number. Bill Belichick's a huge NFL history guy, and he wants his name on the top of that leaderboard that Shula's on. It's kind of funny because if you talk to he asked who's the greatest coach of all time, it's very rarely do you hear Don Shula, but he's the number one in terms of wins, and that's what Belichick wants to do. He wants to get that win title here. I think I can find it relatively fast. I don't want to spend a long time looking at this, but I think I can find it winning really fast here. if I can, I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing it, but let me see. I'll try one other thing and then I'll just drop it. But all right. All right. I'm just going to drop it. But Vrabel firing is shocking. Yeah, one pride. I was really hoping that something like this was going to happen on Monday. And the reason why is that was like kind of the whole point of the Black Monday show. There's always a shocking fire, and it really wasn't. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Mike Caldwell for Jacksonville, that surprised me. Wink Martindale, the Giants, surprised me, but there wasn't a head coaching fire that I didn't see coming a mile away. I know that when Vrabel was when he replaced Mike Munchak, thanks, by the way, Gooch, for stating that. I couldn't remember the guy's name. That I didn't like the Vrabel replacing Munchak, who I think should have stayed there. But Vrabel is, I think, the number one candidate. I think it's bar none. I think he's excellent. But we'll find out. We'll find out, because I think that the goal is that they really want to go with an offensive minded guy, somebody that can work with Levis. You get Hopkins for a year. I'm not sure which direction that they want to go in, but I do agree with you. I wouldn't have done this. I think he's number one candidate. I think maybe Vrabel is not the right fit in Tennessee anymore. Sometimes coach have a shelf life and the players start tuning out. That's correct. And a lot of people feel like that's the situation in Pittsburgh. Some people feel like that's the situation with Bill Belichick in New England. And so I get that. I loved Mike Vrabel. He proved me wrong. I didn't like the hire in the beginning, but I do know this is that One Pride nailed this right here, because I remember when they traded A.J. Brown, Vrabel was publicly pissed about it. And that's kind of rare for a head coach to be so against management. But I think that kind of kickstarted the rift between the two. Amazement. What is up, brother? Dan, it's playoff time. My guy, salute. Best job opening. It's funny. I didn't actually rate the 5 on yesterday's show, but if I did, I would have rated it, all things being equal. Here's how I would have rated them. I think Atlanta's easily number 1. I would have put the Raiders at 2 over Washington, but that's only the only reason I say that is because I think that you have something in Aiden O'Connell. That's my opinion. But if you don't think Aiden O'Connell's a starting caliber quarterback, you may want to go with Washington. You could flip-flop those two, but I would have Raiders 2. I would have Washington at 3. I would have Carolina at 4. And I think the worst job is the Chargers. With the Titans job open, there's some really good pieces in play for the Tennessee Titans. A lot of it has to depend on how much you like Will Levis. I do like Levis. There's a lot to like there. I don't know the salary cap situation in Tennessee right off the top of my head, but that's one thing about the Chargers. Chargers have the worst out of all the teams open. The Chargers have the worst cap situation. They have they have to get creative. They're gonna have to cut players. Plus, you have the superstar quarterback and high expectations. That's why it's the worst. I like Atlanta because you have cap space. There's a lot of free agent quarterbacks that are going to be available. Me and Funk were chatting on the comments here, and with some of the comments we were going back and forth. He's like, if I'm Atlanta and I go with Ben Johnson, I'm Ben Johnson. I try to bring Hendon Hooker or Jared Goff with me, or maybe I just trade for Jake Browning and use the 8th overall pick to help build that roster up. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I think those solutions would make a lot of sense. I think Atlanta's going to try to draft a quarterback. But yeah, Henry's a free agent. Henry is a free agent. I think with Vrabel gone, I don't think he's going to come back. Was it Spears, the third round rookie out of Tulane, a guy I really liked. I really liked him coming out of Tulane, but I thought he was going to be Robin, the Derrick Henry's Batman. Turns out to be they're both really, really good. Spears is going to take over as the number one guy. So Derrick Henry's a guy that I think walks. I would like him here in Kansas City. You know, the best team for him, though, the best fit for him would be your Bucks, who, if you watched my picks video, back-to-back years, they've had the worst rushing offense in football. And I bring that up when I talked about them going against the Eagles, because it's kind of an interesting matchup, Tampa Bay and Philly. But Derrick Henry on a team like the Bucks makes a lot of sense. Would make a lot of sense because Tampa Bay is going to have some offensive linemen come back from injury. Then again, they have to figure out what to do with Baker Mayfield. We're going to find out after the playoffs. That's going to be an interesting story. If you haven't had a chance yet, check out my picks video. I got listed below. It's a great video. It's a great video. Yeah, it's safe to say the Titans have no direction right now. Absolutely, it's safe to say that. I don't like it at all. My impression is that they're going to go with an offensive-minded coach, build a team around Levis. You have Hopkins for at least one more year. Treylon Burks, they drafted 2 years ago, very raw guy, didn't really develop. This is a guy that I really wanted in Kansas City a couple years ago. I think he was 2 years ago. He was my number one wide receiver, but he was a raw dude, very much like A.J. Brown. He's like 6'2", 225, can run after the catch. Just the offense that they ran at Arkansas was not really conducive to an NFL team. So I think the plan is to, keep Hopkins for this year, try to develop Burks. They got some pieces on the offensive line they need to work with. Defensively, it could be a very good team, but I also think that a lot of it has to do with coaching. So we'll find out. But when they fired Mike Munchak, I thought Vrabel was a mistake, and Vrabel got that team to an AFC championship game. But I think Vrabel is the number one hire. Now, if you want to tell me it's Ben Johnson, I understand, because that's the way the NFL is going right now. You want an offensive-minded guy to be your coach. So, but that's kind of the way things are right now in the NFL. So, bear with me here. I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties here. All right. Sorry about that. Like I said, if you're tuning in late, originally I was supposed to have George Panagakis come on, the number one handicapper, number one NFL handicapper in the world. He hit me up just 30 minutes ago. Wasn't able to make it, so I apologize for that. But I'm going to talk football as long as you guys want to talk. 1 to 10, what are our chances versus the Eagles? I hope Baker is healthy enough to exploit their secondary. Only thing they're doing right is the brotherly shove play. If you watch my picks video, I'm going to ruin it for you. I picked the Bucks. And the reason why I picked the Bucks is that Tampa Bay matches up really, really good against Philly. Philly has the 31st, depends yardage-wise, 31st against passing yards allowed, and Baker Mayfield threw for over 4,000. They have a pair of 1,000-yard wide receivers. So I think that matchup really benefits Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, of course, can't run the ball. They don't really try either. And Philly is really bad against pass. So that works out to their advantage. When you go against Philly, because of Jalen Hurts, they run the ball more than most teams. That's Tampa Bay's strength. They're fifth in rushing defense. So I really like the matchup. I think Eagles have easily more talent. I think they're the better team. They don't match up really good against Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay's won 5 of 6. Philly's lost 5 of 6. I said all this in the video. Do check it out, please, even though I ruined it for you. But 1 to 10, I'm going to put it as 6. Because I kind of went back and forth. But I look at what NFL games – a lot of times are just matchups, which teams match up better. And I like the Tampa Bay matchup against Philly quite a bit, What's Philly's weakness? Well, their pass defense. What's Tampa Bay do well? Well, they got 2 stud wide receivers and Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, I don't think is elite, but I think he's good. And I think that's enough. I don't have any faith in Philly to put up 30, 40 points, not against the Bucs have a good defense. They really do. So I think that what you do is that I'm looking at a low scoring game. Well, which team's got the better possibility of scoring? Well, A.J. Brown went down. Jalen Hurts went down. I think both of them will play. Neither one will be 100%. So, but yeah, I'm going to say 6. I picked them to win in my video. But do watch it anyway, Amazement. It's a great video. Amazement, I kind of want you guys to fire Bowles. Imagine Baker with Ben, my friend. That actually would be really good. That would be a good matchup. A head coach, GM, and owner all need to be on the right page or same thing. Absolutely, Perry. One of the biggest problems that teams have is that they hire a good coach or new general manager or a good general manager, but they're not on the same page. I remember the Chiefs. They brought in Scott Pioli from New England, and he wasn't on the same page with. He brought in Todd Haley. I think Todd Haley is an excellent coach. You will not find one of a better offensive mind. Had some problems relating to some of his players, but him and Pioli constantly butt heads, and they were not on the same page at all. Behind the scenes, it was an issue with Matt Castle. Haley just didn't want to work with Matt Castle. Of course, the Chiefs signed him like to a 5-year, I think it was like $60-something million deal, and it obviously didn't work out. But I forget who the Lions general manager was. Him and Patricia, they weren't on the same page. I actually thought that when Arthur Smith got fired, because they brought in Arthur Smith and the general manager, I thought both were going to go because that very first draft, there was do they go with drawing a blank on the guy's name. Dinner Gator's going to hate me for this. The tight end out of Florida, which they ended up taking, or a quarterback. And the general manager won the quarterback. The coach won the tight end out of Florida. Kyle Pitts. Okay, Kyle Pitts. And that was a big problem. So they went with Kyle Pitts instead, and that was a big issue. But instantly, right off the bat, they weren't on the same page. And you could tell because they weren't on the same page, that ended up hurting them. So that ended up hurting. So. Good luck this weekend. One Pride sucks. Laporta went down, but Campbell really wanted that 2 seed. That wasn't happening. Yeah, that could really hurt. Laporta is a great young tight end. Going into next year, I might call Laporta the number 1 tight end. I might call Evan Ingram the number 1 tight end. It's not Kelsey anymore. That's hard to say because I did a video top 10 tight ends of all time. I put Kelsey at number 1 because the stats ended up with victories. And that's why I called Kelsey the greatest tight end of all time. But if Laporta plays, he's not going to be 100%, and that could really hurt. I want an offense. Let me ask you something. Bowles wins this game. Do you still want him gone? It happened with Mike Munchak several years ago. So Perry says Falcons are a quarterback away from being a contender, could win the NFC South year in and year out. Absolutely, Perry. Absolutely. And that's how you approach that. Because Funk, he put some comments in my picks video. He's like, look, if you hire Ben Johnson, bring in Jared Goff, you can get Hendon Hooker. Why not go for Jake Browning? You can go with either one of those guys, and then use the 8th pick overall. You build your team up. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're going to go draft, but you can easily go with a veteran quarterback. There's going to be some good ones that are going to be available. What about Baker Mayfield? You put Baker Mayfield on Atlanta. That's a 10-win team right now. Easy. He's a free agent. Gardner Minshew's a free agent. I believe Sam Darnold's a free agent. Carson Wentz is a free agent. And then there's I think 5 quarterbacks. Probably 5 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round when everything's said and done. So, I mean, yeah, you got some options there if you're Atlanta. Atlanta gets a good quarterback. Atlanta doesn't even need an elite quarterback. They get a good quarterback, and they're a 10-win team right now, easy. Bowles, I commend him for the job he did this year. I don't think he can get us over the top. The real coaching works with what they have and make it work. So I'm going to guess that win or lose, you want him out, but which I think is interesting, but it's not unprecedented. So, do you think Henry will sign a contender for less money? Do you think he wants to get paid? He got a lot of money with Tennessee. I really don't know. I wish here's the thing. You always want to hear players say, I'll take less money and get a ring. I think Derrick Henry knows that he's going into Canton. Because he's a bigger running back who has lots of wear and tear, he probably knows he only has a few years left. So I wish I could tell you. I want to tell you that he'll go for a contender and take less money. However, if you're Derrick Henry, you know you're I don't know how old he is off the top of my head. I think he's 29 or 30. But when you're a bigger running back, especially a tall running back like Derrick Henry is, the amount of punishment that you've taken over the years is really big. I mean, there's a lot of wear and tear on him. I guarantee you, like even during the off season, he still has aches and pains. And you know, I'm 49. When Derrick Henry gets into his 40s, he's going to wake up sore every single day of his life. He probably knows this. So, you know, it depends. I mean, if it's like let's talk Tampa Bay, for example. Let's call Tampa Bay a contender just for fun, because I think that would be a perfect fit. Tampa Bay offers you, I don't know, $3 million a year, or the Carolina Panthers offer you $5 million a year. You'd probably take the three. But if Carolina offered you $8 million a year, and a team like Tampa Bay, by the way, I think the Bucs would be a great fit for Derrick Henry, 32nd rushing yards, and Rachaad White's more of a receiver than a runner. Keep in mind, if you make a move like this, you sign Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay offers you 3, Carolina offers you 8. I don't know if Derrick Henry's going to turn that down, because he may be thinking, hey, look, I want to be secure, and I know I only got a couple years left. I would love Derrick Henry in Kansas City. I think Tampa Bay would be the best spot for him, all things being equal. But with Tampa Bay, Amazement says, hey, I don't want Bowles back even if he wins a game. You know, Amazement, I encourage you to watch my video because it's awesome, but I got several upsets, actually. I got 3. Out of the playoff games, I got 3. I got 3 underdogs winning, and I'll start off. I'm going to give you the 3, but do watch the video, please. Please watch the video. It's the description's below. It's a terrific video. I have Houston winning, and a lot of people think Cleveland's a team of destiny. They're going to go and win the Super Bowl. I really like the Houston Texans. I like the fact that they're at home. I'm impressed with what Flacco's doing, but who do I want, CJ Stroud or Flacco? You got a young team. They're at home. So I actually like, I picked Houston. I'm sorry, Lions fans. I went with the Rams. It was a tough one. I think the Laporta injury kind of affects things. And then I like Tampa Bay. And I'll give you a huge upset. Somebody put in my comment on the picks video. Somebody had the Bills winning 21-14. I don't see that, but the Bills are a 10-point favorite. I definitely think the Steelers cover. If I was going to say put a bet down, I would probably bet the Steelers to cover, because I like the way the Steelers match up against the Bills. I think the Steelers are going to run the ball. I think they're going to do a good job about keeping the game relatively low scoring. Josh Allen, even though he's scored, I think, 2 touchdowns every game this year, except for the first game this season. I know it's like an NFL record, tied an NFL record, something like that. He turns the ball over. And if Mason Rudolph doesn't turn the ball over and they run the ball, that's a recipe for a win. A good running game and good defense travels well. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. So, I mean, like if I was going to bet on a game, and I'll be honest, there's no game I would like say, hey, bet your life savings on it. But there's two bets I would probably make. I would probably take Pittsburgh in 10. If I can get 10.5, I'd take that as much as I can get. If you're not aware, in Kansas City, it's snowing outside right now. We're under a winter storm warning. When the Chiefs play the Dolphins, it's going to be single-digit temperatures and possibility of snow. When I made my video, the point spread was 44. I think it could drop below 40. And then people are going to look at 21-14, and there's going to be a lot of action on the under. I might take the over right before game time because you may be able to get you may be able to get 40 points. And look at these two offenses. And I know the Kansas City Chiefs offense has struggled, but are you going to tell me they can't get 20 points in a playoff game? I don't know. So, I mean, Chiefs over, or I over on Chiefs Dolphins right before game time, but it has to drop significantly, and I think it will. And also like a Steelers plus 10. So, but yeah, I'm picking Philly's favored. So, amazement, yeah. And by the way, there's a chance that he will play. He's just not going to be 100%, and that's yeah. Yeah, and Laporta, like I said, going into the season, Evan Ingram may be my number one tight end. It may be Laporta. I'll think about it. But I love Laporta's game. Perry asked, do you think the Bucs keep Bowles will be on the hot seat next season? So I think getting to the playoffs, I think that's enough to keep him. He's 100% on the hot seat, easily on the hot seat. I don't think it's even a debate. And a lot of it's going to be that what do you do during the offseason? Baker Mayfield's only on a one-year deal. He's a rental. And because you went to the playoffs, you're going to, if you want to get the quarterback that you want, you're going to have to trade up, or you have to get Baker Mayfield a lot of money. Keep in mind, Daniel Jones and Derek Carr both signed for similar contracts. I know Derek Carr was 4-year, 160. I think Daniel Jones signs for something very similar. So if you're Baker Mayfield's agent, you're going, hey, these two guys got over 40. I got a quarterback that took you to the playoffs. What would Derek Carr do? And you gave Derek Carr 160. And if the Bucs do that, then they kind of hamstring themselves. So that's kind of a tough situation. I do think they keep Bowles. If they win a playoff game, then definitely. If Philly beats them like 31-7, it wouldn't surprise me if they let Bowles go. But will he be on the hot seat? 100%. If we lose close, I think Bowles stays and we get destroyed. Yeah, I agree. Beat the Birds, man. Philly better be ready to come in and play. I do like the Bucs. I like the Bucs. The Bucs, fifth in rushing defense. Philly's a heavy run team. Philly has the 31st ranked passing defense. A lot of problems in that secondary, and Tampa Bay's. I really don't think that they're even going to try to run the ball. I think that what they're going to do is just going to come out and say, hey, look, we're just going to throw the ball 60 times, 50, 60 times a game, or 50, 60 times against the Eagles. I don't even think they try to run the ball. So. Also, don't be surprised. Sirianni could be a hot seat candidate. Absolutely. Bob Quinn. I think we can. I hope in Baker's. That's another thing. Baker Mayfield is banged up, but he will play. I was going to ask that amazement because I saw 9-0, and yeah, I saw 9-0. And by the way, kudos to Tampa Bay for shutting out an NFL team, even a team with a bad defense. But when you score 9 points in a game, I was going to ask you because I didn't get a chance to watch the game. But yeah, that has a lot to do with it. And I'm predicting he's going to be okay, relatively speaking. Yeah. Denver Gator, I'm sorry, man. By the way, Denver Gator, I in case you're tuning in late, I was supposed to have George, aka Riley, on about 30 minutes before the show. He canceled. He wasn't able to come on. I did press for a reason. One of the things about doing YouTube is that you have things like this happen. You have guests that don't show up or show up late. It's just one of those things. I did forget Kyle Pitt's name. I feel so bad about that. But I do agree with you, Denver Gator, that Ben Powers, the tight end out of Georgia, is a better prospect. So actually, Denver Gator, I hope that come during draft season, I hope I can get you to come back on and we can talk some of these draft prospects. Bob Quinn is good at finding O-line, but not finding other talent, other positions. You're right. I kind of forgot about. I kind of just forgot, but yeah, he was the Lions GM. So here are my three hot seat candidates for next year: Sirianni, Kevin O'Connell, Dennis Allen. I'll be honest with you. Number one's Brian Dable. Brian Dable is number one. So. McCarthy's always going to be on hot seat. That's always going to be fluid. I think Brian Dable's number one. I really, really believe that. I get the logic, but I wouldn't have done it. Perry says, I don't understand us playing the starters against the Vikings. I get it. I would not have done it. I would have rested my players, which Laporta got hurt. A lot of teams did this. Cleveland did this. The Rams did this. The Lions didn't. So if the Lions lose, you could point to that. But yeah. For continuity's sake, I want Bowles to stay since guys are still playing hard for him. Just not sure the ceiling for Bowles. Maybe one more season if we win. I've never been sold on Bowles. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I would love to have him as my defensive coordinator. I think he's a great defensive mind. Players like him. Players respond to him. I like Todd Bowles a lot. I'm not sold on him as an NFL head coach. I love Herm Edwards. All right. I don't want Herm Edwards coaching my team. I think Bowles is much better than Herm as a head coach. No disrespect to Herm, who I love Herm Edwards. Okay. So I love Herm Edwards. But it was so hard watching the Chiefs play with Herm Edwards as the head coach. But in all fairness with Bowles, I mean, it was kind of a weird situation. And, what do you do at quarterback? Because the whole Baker Mayfield situation's tough. Because if I'm Baker, I'm looking at Derek Carr, and I'm like, I'm better than Derek Carr. I should get more than $40 million a year. But he did that in Cleveland. He banked on himself, and it didn't pan out. So it's easy for me and you to say I would take $30 million instead of $40 million, but we're not in that situation. So it's going to be hard. But and also I don't know the relationship between Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles. Like, these two may hate each other. I mean, there's been situations like that where the head coach and player don't get along. I don't know this. So places where Derrick Henry could land, the Cowboys. I think Tampa Bay would be the perfect situation. Yeah, I really think that would be a great 1-2 punch. I would love Derrick Henry in a place like Kansas City, but I doubt it will happen. The Cowboys always make a lot of sense. You could look at a team that could use a little punch in the running game. A team like Minnesota, but the offense they run, I think, really doesn't fit very well. I'll give you a surprise team, and it would be the New York Giants. And you only do that if Barkley leaves in free agency, which could make a lot of sense. Because I think Barkley, they're making a lot of weird changes in New York. So Barkley, who's a free agent, he may want to leave, but if Barkley stays, and I would expect Derrick Henry not to go there. But if Barkley leaves, a guy like Derrick Henry could make a lot of sense in a place like New York. So, but he could also stay with Tennessee. My impression is that I think Derrick Henry and Vrabel really like each other. If Vrabel goes to another team, it wouldn't surprise me if he made a big effort to bring in Derrick Henry. So find out where Vrabel is, and that would kind of be the first place I would look at. So, Philly's head coach needs to find a good offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator if he wants to keep his job. Roseman doesn't mess around if he feels like he could change the course or a mistake. You are correct about that, and I think that they will make a change on the defensive side of the ball. I would take a hard look at Wink Martindale, the former Giants defensive coordinator who resigned. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, that would be a great fit in Philly. So I would pay attention to that. That wouldn't surprise me if Martindale, just out of pure spite, goes to Philly. Be ready for a JMO breakout. It could happen. It could happen. It definitely could happen. So, yeah, it definitely could happen. So, all right. I apologize in advance. I was, for those of you who don't know, I was going to have George, A.K. Riley, come in. But he wasn't able to come on. So I'm kind of just ad-libbing on the fly here. It's one of the things you got to do if you're a YouTuber. So, all right. And I apologize. I'm really behind on comments. If Dallas doesn't make San Francisco, I can see McCarthy one pride. You got a question, Dak, too. No excuses this postseason. A close Lions loss could hurt, but the Lions are tough, too. The pressure on Dak to see to show if he can take the Cowboys. There is pressure. If they lose to Green Bay, that's going to be a problem. Laporta doesn't. No, he doesn't. But if he doesn't play, it's a big loss, and it will hurt because both teams have really good offenses. It could be a shootout in Detroit. So if Aaron Jones can run it, I see the Packers making it a game. You can run it on Dallas, plus it takes the pressure off Love, run the ball to shorten the game, and play keep away. It's funny, amazement. I don't know if you watched the video, but that's almost exactly what I said. I put down that Aaron Jones had 3 consecutive 100-yard games going into the playoffs, plus bring on that A.J. Dillon may come back. But that's exactly what I said. If Green Bay is going to win the game, they have to run the ball and shorten the game up. That's exactly what they need to do. So you're 100% correct. Did you steal this from me? Lamar, Dak, and Allen needs to prove they can take. Absolutely, Perry. Absolutely. If the Packers lose big, I think the Packers need to move on. That's an interesting because LaFleur, I thought easily could have been on the hot seat. The Packers start off, I think, 2-5, and I said LaFleur could be on the hot seat. Remember, they traded Rasheed Douglas. I thought that might have been to get a quarterback. I thought LaFleur could easily been on the hot seat. But when they turned things around, got to the playoffs, I think LaFleur is safe this year because of the advancement of Jordan Love, but it's definitely a possibility. I just hate the fact that it's a Monday night game. It's another game to get healthier, but a short week forever wins 8 at the end of it. I didn't understand. I thought it was a no-brainer of all the games. LA and Detroit should have been the Monday night game. That's the game that should have been Monday night. And I don't know why they did it that way. I get why they had Detroit versus LA Sunday night, but I thought the premier game should have been on Monday. I would have had, no disrespect, I would have had Tampa Bay Philly noon Sunday. And then and then was it the Green Bay Dallas game? That would have been the afternoon game. I'm just drawing a blank here on how what I was trying to say here. But LA Detroit, that should have been the Monday game. You could have had Dallas then Sunday night, and then the other game right there. But late 90s, early Tampa Bay Philly. That was a lot of fun in the late 90s, early 2000s. Andy Reid versus Gruden, the final game at the Vet. The Eagles fans still hate that. Tampa Bay never won a playoff game below freezing. It was below freezing. Final game at the Vet. First time going to an NFC championship game versus Andy Reid, who went to 3 consecutive and lost 3 consecutive. Philly should have won that game. Philly should have won that game. But yeah. A surprise team that may make a big move up for a quarterback in the draft. Ooh, that is a great question, Perry. Let me break out my depth chart, or I'm sorry, let me break out my draft chart here. That is a good one. That is actually a great one here. Surprise team. I'm not really sure what you would consider a surprise, but I'm looking specifically. I'm looking 10 through 14. Okay. Jets at 10 could take a quarterback. That might be a surprise to you. But Zach Wilson's not the guy. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be there forever. You have a loaded up team. You have Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be there forever. The Jets at 10. So the Jets did give up some draft capital in order to get Rodgers. So, I mean, they don't have a second round pick. So if they trade up, it would be next year's picks. But I'm looking at the Jets. Minnesota at 11. I don't know if that's really a surprise or not, but I think they're a team. Denver at 12 is another team. The Raiders at 13. And then the Saints at 14. I think all those teams could be in the market to trade up. I think Atlanta could be in the market to trade up. Tampa Bay at 20. I don't know if it's a surprise. The problem is, though, is that you pick 20. That's a tough one. So I don't know which one of those you would consider a surprise, but just for me, I'm gonna throw out the Jets. And it would, even though the Jets don't have a second round pick in this year's draft, so you would go your first and your second round pick for a quarterback. I can see the Jets doing that, but you got to fall in love with somebody, and you also have to have a plan for Zach Wilson. Like you got to you have to get some trade capital in return. So. Plus, the NFL's making people play for Plus, NFL's making people pay for the Chiefs-Dolphins game on Peacock. I swear the NFL is so damn greedy. How do you make people pay to watch a playoff game from? Check this out. I have YouTube TV, and yesterday I found out I can't even get local markets you can watch a game. I have YouTube TV. I'll have to sign up for Peacock. I'm waiting and I'm stalling because I really don't want to do it. But since I'm doing play-by-play, I kind of got to. Really don't like that at all. Because the last game I didn't know about it until I'm trying to find it. Because I have YouTube TV, and because it's a streaming service, I'm apparently not getting the game locally, and I'm going to double check because they may change it up a little bit. But because I don't want to do it, but I'll probably end up paying the $5.99 or whatever, and I'll look at what Peacock has for the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to be honest, man. Normally, I think it's a little weird, but I kind of like it. I'll be honest. All blue uniforms that the Lions have is really tight. Dude, Perry, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. And we're going to do a lot of talk about quarterbacks, but Jaden Daniels is a guy that's going to just skyrocket up through the draft boards. But I'll be honest with you, if I had to choose a quarterback in this draft and I had to choose between Jaden Daniels and Penix, I would go with Penix. And you get a guy like Penix with the awesome athleticism of Pitts, that makes a lot of sense to me. We'll find out, man. But I'm going to tell you this right now: if there's a lot of bad blood between Dable and Martindale. Martindale going to Philly would be a lot of fun. And by the way, if Giants didn't make the playoffs, I think Dable could be a guy that is a surprise fire in the next couple of days. But he's my number one coach on the hot seat for 2024. Did Penix stock take a hit last night? I wouldn't think so, but you never know. I'm surprised he struggled so much, but give that that's kudos to Harbaugh. Get back to the NFL now. Yeah, if I'm Harbaugh, I definitely go back. I mean, how do you beat 15-0? I mean, that's the best team he's had in Michigan. I know that they've just been bringing in top classes, but they're going to lose a lot. Now, a lot of it's reloading, but if I'm Harbaugh, I definitely, hey, look, you're not going to do any better than that. You can't do any better than that. Some people think, matter of fact, George tweeted out that he thought Penix stock took a hit. I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. The arm talent, the athleticism, it still stood out. Michigan just had a much better team than Washington. The talent difference between the two, that really doesn't happen in the NFL. And the fact that he was able to keep it close, I don't think it did. Right now, as a general rule of thumb, and we're going to dive into this more as the draft comes in, and I haven't had a chance to watch May or the quarterback out of North Carolina. I'm really embarrassed because I haven't even watched them. But universally, it's Caleb Williams, May, Daniels, and then Penix is 4. I would put Penix above Jaden Daniels. I would do that. I'm in the minority, but I don't think it did. But I think Jaden Daniels' draft stock is just going to skyrocket up through the roof, and I've even heard that he's going to go top 5. And Anthony Richardson. By the way, if Jaden Daniels, Anthony Richardson, Daniels has better tape, which is hard to believe. But of course, Richardson, a lot of that was a show they put on at the combine. So I still hate Philly, Denver Gators. I don't even know who the offensive coordinator in Tampa is. Is it somebody who's going to be replaced? Yeah. That's why our greatest moment ever in Bucs history is Deronde. Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. Washington wide receiver Jalen Polk is entering the draft. Yeah, Washington has several receivers. I like Penix. Rome Odunze is my number 1 draft crush. I'm not saying he's my number 1 player, but he's my draft crush. So it would be cool if the Ravens win the Super Bowl, so Harbaugh brothers would be. That would be kind of cool. I don't know why I didn't put that together, but Lions by 1 million. I mean, move on from God, that's a good one, Perry. Would Green Bay want to move on from Jordan Love? You only do that if you got a contingency plan in play, and that means you have to be able to lock down a quarterback in the draft. I mean, do you want to do that next year? I should have looked it up. I think next year is this year or next year's the 5th year option. If you don't mind, Perry, hit me up later. I should have took a look at that contract situation. I don't know it off the top of my head because if next year's year, I think next year's actually year 4, or there's this year. So this would be the 5th year option. I believe the Packers. I have to double check that, but the contract situation comes into play because when Jordan Love wants $250 million over 5 years, maybe it would be better to move on. Everyone bet $100 on the Bucs if you want to win. Vegas secretly overrates my team every week. Slasher. Man, I do check out my picks video. I'm going to ruin it for you. I do like the Bucs and an upset. Right now, Philly's still a 3-point favorite, but you're right. Vegas. So here's the deal. Dallas is the number 1 team that Vegas always overrates, and the reason why is just a lot of money. Usually the LA teams, but not really this year. Vegas, believe it or not, is not really bet up, even though they're right in Vegas. But that's a great point. I haven't been paying attention to that, but I would not put Philly as a 3-point favorite in this game. I would probably put them at 1, maybe 1.5. I do think they should be favored. One Pride 40 says, you think Goff has a grudge against McVay? God, I don't know. I kind of think he does. Remember, McVay didn't draft him. It was Jeff Fisher, and then Jeff Fisher got fired his rookie season, and they brought in McVay, and they had some success. But the star, when the Rams had success, remember they went to the Super Bowl, lost 13-3 against the Patriots. The star of that team was Todd Gurley, not Goff. And then Gurley was injured in the NFC Championship game. Remember that very questionable non-pass interference call? Saints fans still complain about that, and they did get robbed. The Saints had the better team. They should have. In all fairness, though, I can go on and on about that game, but because I thought the Saints that year had a Super Bowl caliber team, but I think he does. I think he does. It's funny because every time I've seen Goff seems like such a mellow dude that he doesn't like Dan Campbell's a guy that runs on a lot of anger and a lot of hate. The Goff, I don't think's that way, but yeah, I think he does. I thought they would take Dallas for Monday night, but Fox probably wanted it. I'd rather play early Sunday. Yeah. It's not a good thing, really. But I really thought that the Lions Rams game would be the Monday night game. So Slasher says Goff probably still loves McVay. I think the harsh feelings are pointed more towards the front office. I have no idea. Goff is like kind of a mellow type of dude, so I'm not really sure what kind of feelings he does or doesn't. I think he does. If Goff can beat McVay and Stafford to shut people up that he was trash. I don't know if people thought he was trash, but I know McVay really wanted to open up the offense, which they were able to do under Stafford. So Jackson Albert, welcome, brother. And I apologize. I'm behind on comments here. I'm a Cowboys fan, and Cowboys will beat Green Bay. That's who I am. I by the way, at the beginning of the season, I picked Dallas to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. So we need more Cowboys fans here, man, Jackson. So I'm glad to see you, brother. Glad to see you. If you haven't already, check out my it's in the link below. It should be in the link below. Let me double check here. I had to kind of do this on the fly. I had a guest I was supposed to show up, and that happens sometimes. If anybody who does YouTube, okay, yeah. So my picks videos in there. So if you do YouTube for a living, or just part time like myself, I'm trying to do it full time. You got to deal with things like guests showing up late or guests not showing up at all. It happens, but anyway, done with that. Denver Gator, yeah, so many storylines this week. Texans, Browns. Texans and Browns played Christmas Eve. That's another storyline. Stafford, Goff, McCarthy, Green Bay, Kansas City, and Tyreek Hill. All these are great storylines. Yeah. Amazement says, would the Bears do it? Number one, do they take Harrison Jr., a quarterback, and move on from Fields? Here's what I think is going to happen, Amazement. Excuse me. Oh, man, excuse me. Here's what I would do, and here's what I think is going to happen. Washington is going to trade from 2 to 1 because they want to draft Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is from the D.C. area. You have a financial group that's taken over the Washington Commanders, not a football guy. You have a financial group. Okay. What do? You're going to run it like a business. Well, what do you do if you're a business? You have to generate sales. Well, who's going to generate sales? Well, how about the kid who's from the area who won a Heisman Trophy, who's universally considered the number one player in the draft? It just makes sense. You have an extra second round pick. You have an extra third round pick. It just makes sense. So the Bears, I think when everything's said and done, this is going to happen before the draft. Washington will pick 1. Chicago will pick 2. Chicago at 2 has some options. Okay. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Penix, whatever you want. Or do they go Marvin Harrison Jr.? Or do they trade because it's going to be a quarterback heavy draft. So you don't have to stay at 2. I think Chicago will trade from 1 to 2. I think at 2 they take Marvin Harrison Jr. I really do. I think that the Bears are going to say, hey, look, we're going to Fields, Harrison Jr., and you got DJ Moore. If you have Harrison Jr. and it doesn't work, we're going to move on, get somebody new. That's what I think is going to happen. And then at number 9, I would take the best offensive lineman available, but you can do whatever you want. The pick from 1 to 2 makes a lot of sense, but there's a lot of teams that could try to trade up to number 1. I'm looking at the Giants at 6. Remember, they traded Leonard Williams. They could offer a lot of things there. You have some extra draft capital. You have some players. Atlanta at 8. Could easily make a trade. Throw out some dark horses, like you said. What about Minnesota at 11? Denver at 12. There's some options. I think when everything's said and done, I really do think that what you're going to see is the Bears flip with Washington, and then the Bears at 2 will entertain some offers to trade up. But I think at 2 they'll end up taking Marvin Harrison Jr. That's my opinion. I forgot about the home opener in the new stadium. I'll never forget that final game at the Vet. I'll never forget that. McVay did push Goff. McVay was adamant that he wanted something different. The Trek Reviewer says hello. I don't recognize the name. Cool. Name tag the Trek Reviewer. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Glad to see you in, brother. Why would they move on from Love? He killed it in his first starting season. Love isn't going anywhere soon. I don't think he is either. It'd be interesting if they decided to move on, but you only move on from Love if you got a contingency plan in play, and I don't see one. I don't think Love is worth a big contract. Just feel like Tua is not that worth the type of money. Tua is an interesting situation because you got to figure out what to do this year because the other 2 quarterbacks drafted made big time contracts. Burrow got $275 and Herbert got $250. With Love, he was drafted a year later, if I'm correct. I don't think you have to make that move. You can see if Love takes that next step up. We'll have to see what happens. Goff did play well. They got to a Super Bowl, but I think most of that was Todd Gurley because Todd Gurley was just absolutely amazing. So Goff and McVay had a falling out over Goff saying he wanted. Oh yeah, there was. Somebody's brought that. I never knew about that. Somebody brought that up. So, the Trek Reviewers that listen to Trek Reviewer. I did not get a chance to watch as much college football as I wanted to this year, but after the combine, this is going to be Draft Central. So I please come back and talk some draft with me because Braylon Allen from Wisconsin's a major man crush. I talked about Tampa Bay being a spot for Derrick Henry. Even if Tampa Bay can't make something work with Baker Mayfield, it wouldn't surprise me if Braylon Allen ends up in the first round, and I'm looking at Tampa Bay as a perfect fit for a guy like Braylon Allen. I love Braylon Allen. NFL teams are going to fall in love with this kid. He's going to enter the draft. He's only 20. I think he's going to. I've heard. I don't really trust the measurables, but I think he's going to be around 6'1", 6'2", 245. I think he's going to crack under. I think he's going to run in the 4.5 range. I think NFL teams are just going to fall in love with this guy. Braylon Allen could surprise a lot of people, and I'm looking at Tampa Bay specifically, but I would love him to come to Kansas City. I would love him to come to Kansas City in the first round. Hopefully pick number 32, but Trek Viewer says, I like wide receiver Johnny Wilson from Florida State, 6'7", 230. Oh my God, I did not know he was that big. Braylon Allen from Wisconsin and defensive tackle Javonde Sweat, the 6'4", 332 guy from Texas for Buffalo in the draft. Well, with Buffalo, I would be really surprised if they used a first-round pick on a running back. I would be floored if they did that. The defensive tackle Sweat, now, he doesn't fit what they're doing defensively. Now keep in mind, Leslie Frazier stepped away, but they still ran that same style of defense. So I don't think he fits. Johnny Wilson from Florida State, I'm going to do a lot of draft coverage. Taking a wide receiver in the first round makes a lot of sense because I like Diggs, but he's over 30. Gabe Davis is a free agent. I think he's maxed out what he can and can't do. So going to wide receiver makes sense. Braylon Allen's a guy I absolutely love, and I think NFL teams are going to fall in love with the kid. His speed at the combines, I think, is going to be a big deal. Now, keep in mind, I remember Jonathan Allen. I said if he runs under 4.55, he goes in the first round. He runs a 4.38, and he lasts into the second round. Braylon Allen's a guy I think NFL teams are really going to fall in love with, and he may surprise people and be a first round pick. Brendan Rice, the wide receiver from USC, Jerry Rice's son. He's a guy that I'm very high on. Also, I'm a Chiefs fan, but I talk all 32 teams here. If you're a Bills fan, please don't hold it against me. I'm a Chiefs fan. This channel's for all 32 prospects or for all 32 fan bases. Brendan Rice is a guy I would love in Kansas City. Rice to Rice would be a lot of fun, but Brendan Rice is a guy I would love in Kansas City. He's a guy I think is going to go in the first round. So, yeah, these are great, by the way. So right after the combine, this becomes Draft Central, and I'm going to come out with weekly drafts plus I'm debating if I'm going to stay live Tuesday and Friday or just go back to Friday. During the off season, I was just staying live on Friday. As of right now, my plan is to go live Tuesday and Friday, but that may change. But we're just going to talk draft right after the combine up until the NFL draft, and I will be live for the NFL draft. So it's interesting too because so many teams will have new coaches as well. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I think Eberflus stays, but Washington at 2. Chargers at 5, Tennessee at 7, Atlanta at 8, Raiders at 13 potentially. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, I mean it's gonna depend, but I'm gonna let you know right now. I really believe that Washington, Chicago will flip picks. Washington, when everything's said and done, will have number 1 pick in the draft, and they will draft Caleb Williams. Johnny Wilson's a pretty interesting prospect if he has a good combine and a good 40 time. I don't know too much about him, Perry, and I apologize. So, yeah, I don't know too much about him. I'm going to, like I said, I got a lot of research. My biggest draft crush is Rome Odunze. If I was doing a draft board, it would probably go Marvin Harrison, Joe Alt, Rome Odunze, 1, 2, and 3. But I'm not going to do one. Okay, it's time to take votes away from fans for Pro Bowl and just cancel the game altogether. Such a joke. Winfield Jr. didn't get in as a starter, but he'll make All-Pro, which is a bigger honor anyway. There's picks like this every single year. Like last year, Andrew Thomas didn't make the Pro Bowl, but he was second-team All-Pro. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I could argue about that. It's always been a popularity contest. This has been going on for like the last 40, 50 years. So, but one thing I really wish that they would bring back, I don't know why they stopped doing it. Remember the NFL used to have the fastest man competition. That was such a big deal, and they just stopped doing it. And that really bugged me because I loved it. I would love to see the NFL fastest man competition here. I would love it. I don't know why they don't do it. Who's your coach for the year? Lamar for MVP? Probably. Yeah, Lamar would be my MVP. Coach of the year. I think Stefanski's going to win it for Cleveland. I would give to Sean McVay. I really would. Braylon Allen is 6'2", 240. Okay, so here's the deal, the Trek Reviewer. I don't trust any one of these services. I want to wait till the combine comes out, but watching him in person. I mean, let's say in person, watch him on TV. He looks like he's about 240. Here's another thing is that a lot of these guys will trim up or trim down. For example, Ed Oliver, what he did is that he went to the combine, and the biggest issue about him was that his weight was low because apparently the rumor was he played defensive tackle at University of Houston like at 250, 260. So he bulked up for the combine, and he did all the drills, but he didn't run. And he was like at 290, but he never played at 290. Then at his pro day, he didn't weigh in, but he ran to 40. So what may happen is a guy like Braylon Allen, even though he may have played at 245, he may slim down for the combine to try to run a faster 40 time. So even though he's listed at 6'2", 245, don't be surprised if he weighs in at like 6'1", 230. Don't be surprised if that happens. This happens quite a bit where a program will report one height and weight, but in reality is he's something completely different. So, and it also, if I'm Braylon Allen and I'm his representation, I'm telling him to drop weight and nail that 40 time. And there's a lot of guys that will. Matter of fact, I don't think he played in a bowl. I'm pretty sure he didn't play in a bowl game. I'm betting money on that because I watched a lot of that. He didn't play to the best of my knowledge. A lot of these guys enter programs or academies that help them prepare specifically for the combine, and I guarantee you that they're going to focus on him. Because I don't know if he has a track background like Jonathan Taylor does, but I guarantee you that they're going to work on him getting that 40 time down because that could be worth millions to a guy like that. Amazement says it went the Chiefs went after my guy Evans at wide receiver. It would be scary, Kelsey and Evans. I don't want to see it, but I think we should let Evans test the market and tag Winfield Jr. He can't. Winfield Jr. is a stud. My boy Keys was adamant he wanted Evans in Kansas City. I don't think Evans fits this offense. It's a run after the catch offense. We've been drafting guys that are built more like running backs. Evans really doesn't fit that mold. And one thing the Chiefs have been doing is drafting younger players, not aging players at wide receiver, but you're not alone thinking that. I personally, if I'm Evans, I try to stay there in Tampa, but if you can't get out, the appeal to win a Super Bowl, it would be big in Kansas City. I don't think he fits the offense. It's just like putting a square peg in a round hole. I think a guy like Evans, don't be surprised if he ends up in a place like New York with the Giants. Keep in mind the Giants, who knows what they're going to do in the draft. I can see them drafting a quarterback. If that's the case, Evans, you could overpay for a guy like Evans. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Evans. King Henry to the Ravens. I you know what? I didn't even say that, but that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy. They keep on having running backs go down. Derrick Henry would be a force in that offense. There could be a lot of good defensive tackles in this draft. Kansas City might find a replacement for Jones. I hope Brad Holmes is smart enough to pick a defensive tackle early. It'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of time for the draft, but I right now, today, I think Detroit trades out of the first round and tries to stockpile picks for depth. There is a lot of good defensive tackles. I actually think that Kansas City in the first round, you're going to hear a lot of people say Chiefs take a wide receiver in the first round. I don't think they're going to do that. I think that they're going to take a corner or a defensive tackle because there's not a way the Chiefs are going to be able to get Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. They're going to lose one, if not both those guys in free agency. If they lose, depends on which one they're able to sign. I can see them drafting a guy. It wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs go corner in this draft too. But yeah, me and Denver Gator were checking out Allen since his freshman year. Major man crush on the guy. If he runs a good enough, time, he's going in the first round. But I said the same thing about Jonathan Taylor, and he went in the second round. So, but yeah, I have major man crush on this guy. I love Sweat, but I got a hot take for you. I believe we trade up for Jerson Newton. I don't know who that is. If you don't mind, if you guys throw out a player, can you give me the position and the school he went to? And I mean, I'm going to, as time goes on, I'm going to get this ironed down a little more, but as of right now, I just haven't had time to go over everything. So if you don't mind, give me I'm not familiar with this is. Kansas City can take Gabe Davis from the Bills as a free agent. Davis is I remember the 4 touchdowns he had at Arrowhead a couple of years ago. Gabe Davis is a guy I also don't think really fits the Kansas City Chiefs offense, but you never know. The Bears head coach in his first year. I'm drawing. What do you mean by that, Perry? I'm sorry, man. I'm behind on comments. I'm not sure what you're asking. Oh God, you know what? That's not exactly true. Tim Brown beat him 1 year. Rod Woodson beat him 1 year. But Darrell Green did win. Like I know he won at least 4. But he wasn't unbeatable. But I would love it if they would do it now. They did like some goofy thing where Tyreek Hill kind of jogged and Micah Parsons won. But no, I missed the fastest man. Do you think Chris Jones will re-sign with Kansas City? I'm hoping the Bills sign Josh Allen. Oh, God, that would suck. As a Chiefs fan, that would suck. Josh Allen is a guy that I absolutely love. Absolutely. Hold on, I'm gonna touch base on this because Perry, do you think he could be fired, Bears coach? He's not locked. That was kind of one thing. The reason why I wanted the Black Monday show is because I thought a big surprise would happen on Black Monday. It actually happened today with Mike Vrabel. So Mike Vrabel was let go today. I was hoping that would happen yesterday, but Eberflus is still in the hot seat. They're gonna talk about it, but I think ultimately he stays, but it's not set in stone. Do I think Chris Jones will resign? I actually don't. I think Chris Jones will leave for free agency. I think the Chiefs will keep L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed's going to be expensive because he can do everything. He can play man, he can play zone, he can play inside, he can play outside. Slasher talked about Anton Winfield Jr. There's not this year. There's not. I'm going to say 5 corners better than L'Jarius Sneed this year. L'Jarius Sneed you can lock up on the best wide receiver. He can play in the slot. He's not afraid to tackle. I think that if you have to choose between the two, I think Chiefs will go L'Jarius Sneed because Chris Jones is just about 5 years older. So I don't think so, even though I love Chris Jones. I think Chris Jones is, when everything's said and done, he'll be in Canton one day. One of my all-time favorite players. I love Chris Jones. I want him in Kansas City, but no, I think he'll leave, and I think the Chiefs will sign L'Jarius Sneed. Worst case scenario is both will leave via free agency because both are going to ask for a lot of money. With the heights and weights of college, I normally check. That's I'm glad you said that because I haven't dove into that yet, but I know that it's often exaggerated. So that's why I usually wait till the combine and get the official. But I've heard like 6'2", 240, but it wouldn't surprise me if he drops weight. And then I'm judging from your picture. You look really young. You may not remember this. But Brian Urlacher finished his career at like 220 pounds. Then he arrives at the combine. He was 6'2", 220 as a safety at New Mexico. He arrives at the combine at 6'4", 260, but he still runs a 4.5. And people are like, what the hell's going on? And he's like, I just had a growth spurt. And that's really what happened. It was just very weird. Terrell Owens went to Mid-Tennessee State University. He went on track scholarship. He was 6 foot 170, kept the speed, but grew to 6'3", 230. It's weird, but sometimes this happens where players just have, they'll lose weight, gain weight. It wouldn't surprise me if Allen checks into the combine around 230, 235, but ends up playing at like 240 plus. So linebacker Allen from Jackson. Oh God. And I love Josh Allen. I have such a man crush on this guy. He actually started his career. His real natural position is really a 3-4 outside linebacker, but he put on weight to play a defensive end, and then they switched defenses. So he's kind of the new style is that the 3-4 and 4-3 is kind of outdated, and a guy like Josh Allen can do everything. There was talk about the Chiefs giving up a first round pick to get Josh Allen here in Kansas City. That didn't pan out. I think with Caldwell leaving Jacksonville, that may affect, unless Allen had an issue with Caldwell. Caldwell did supposedly have like a really good relationship with a lot of his players. So, yeah, that's going to be a story because he's an elite pass rusher that can play in almost any defense. And I love Josh Allen, but he's going to get a lot of money. Newton is the defensive tackle from Illinois. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at this. I'm going to touch base on this in a second. I don't know too much about him. I know that Illinois has done a great job producing some really good defensive players over the last couple of years. This is awesome. I hope that you contribute a lot more because this is awesome. Davis will fit in Kansas City just fine. He drops. Yeah, that's. Yeah. What team could fired their head coach for? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, this is something that sometimes the guys have some knowledge of. Vrabel in Atlanta makes a lot of sense. New England could be looking at that. I don't think a team's going to fire a coach now if Vrabel's available, but except for New England. And there was some talk about Vrabel going to New England with Belichick steps down. That's kind of a fluid situation, but I do think Vrabel is the number one candidate right now. So Kansas City needs to find wide receivers that can catch on a consistent basis. Absolutely. Not only do they need to find receivers that can catch on a consistent basis, they need to find guys that can also stay healthy. There's also the Justin Ross was a guy the Chiefs really liked. He was on the exempt list for 6 weeks. I kind of don't want to rant on that, but I'm not very happy about that whole situation, simply because it ended up the situation is that there was a warrant out for his arrest. Then it was downgraded from a felony to a misdemeanor. He didn't even get arrested, but he's still on the exempt list for 6 weeks. That to me is some bullshit. I mean, when it's a misdemeanor and you didn't even get arrested, you shouldn't be eliminated from play for 6 weeks. But that's a guy. Rashee Rice is a talented guy, but I think you're going to see 1 or 2 free agent receivers. And I think that I'd look at the Packers model, and I've said this again before, so I know you've probably heard me say this before, but I look at the Packers. They didn't draft somebody in the first round, but they drafted 3 receivers and 2 tight ends. Travis Kelce is going to be 35 at the start of next year. And I wouldn't surprise me if there's a really good tight end in this draft. The only tight end I know that has a first round grade is Powers from Georgia, and he's not going to be available when the Chiefs draft unless something unusual happens between now and the start of the draft. But Packers drafted 3 receivers and 2 tight ends in this draft to give Jordan Love some weapons. It wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs do something like that. That's an old. It's so funny that you say this. I'm old enough to remember the Bills' first Super Bowl. Oh boy. Ooh, God. I got you beat by several years. I got you beat by several years, but yeah, that's good because I mean, in my opinion, the '90s was like the best time to watch football. We got our Chiefs season tickets in '89, and the '90s were a great time for football. I mean, the 49ers Cowboys matchups were legendary. I mean, everybody hated the Denver Super Bowls, but Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith. I mean, it was a great time for the NFL. Jerry Rice, even though he was drafted in '85, I'll probably call him the greatest receiver of all time. Yeah, it is a great time. Great time to watch football. It's kind of funny. There's a guy in the chat, Funk. He's not here today, but he listens afterwards. He jokes around that if you want to get me tripped up, just mention an old-time player, and I'll just go on a rant because I love my NFL history. If you go through my YouTube channel, I do have a list, top 10 tight ends of all time, top 10 teams to never make the Super Bowl, and top 10 Super Bowl teams of all time. So do check those videos out if you're a fan of NFL history. They're great videos. I don't have them in the description, but if you go through my channel, you can see all of them. Oh God, Denver Gator says my fantasy is Kansas City drops the money bag on Chase Claypool. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I remember at the combine, he blew up at the combine. He was like 6'4", 240, ran like a 4.4. I remember watching him at Notre Dame. I was like, I don't see anything that resembles anything close to a 4.4. And Steelers traded him for Chicago for what ended up being Joey Porter Jr. And then Chicago, I think, just gave him away for a 6-pack or something to Miami. And I don't think he has a future with the Dolphins. Nobody wants to see that. Yeah, the Patriots were trash. What was it, 95 or 96? I think 95. I think it was 95. Bring in Bill Parcells. He drafts Drew Bledsoe, and they had some good times. But yeah, Bruce Smith. Oh God, it's so funny. Bruce Smith would make it sounded like booze because every chant his name. Bruce Smith. Oh my God. I remember Buffalo in the early '90s. There was nothing more intimidating than going up to Rich Stadium. I remember one year it was '94 actually, and like the schedule came out and the final game of the season was at Buffalo, and I was like, yeah, no, we're not winning. It was such a brutal. If the Super Bowl was played in cold weather location like New York or a Midwest city like Chicago, maybe the Bills would have won one of those Super Bowls. Oh God, Bruce Smith, such a great player, one of my all-time favorite players. Just it was kind of funny because like his final years with Washington, he just wanted that sack record. And he was out. He even admitted it. He's like, I didn't even try to stop the run. I didn't care. I just went after the quarterback. I didn't care what the play call was. I didn't care what happened. I just wanted that record. That's all I was doing. And Dan Schneider gave him like a boatload of money. Yeah. But oh God, I love Bruce Smith. But it's a good picture, brother, man. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. This is kind of an unusual show. I was supposed to have a guest on half an hour before the show. The guest told me he couldn't make it. I had to change things up on the fly. But if anybody does YouTube for a living knows that one of the hardest things is just getting guests. But I'm actually working on Friday's show, trying to get a Dolphins fan come on, but I don't have that confirmed yet. So we'll have to see if I can get that to happen. But hopefully it can, because it's a chance that it could be a really, really good show. But we'll have to wait and see what happens here. The Bills had a good team in the 90s, but for some reason fell apart when it counted most. Honestly, they should have beat the Giants. Great game plan by the Giants. One of those things where the best team doesn't always win, but the matchup worked perfect. Where they ran the ball, they controlled the clock. Honestly, if you played that game best out of 3, 5, or 7, Bills probably win that first Super Bowl. Against Washington, that was just kind of one of those teams where just everything just came together. Rippon won MVP. The defense was awesome. I mean, just everything just came together. I do think that in the two games, I think the first Super Bowl against Dallas, if that was in a cold stadium, I know it's going to sound crazy because Dallas won like 52-17. Instead of it being played in California, if it was played like maybe in New York or something like that, and they may have had a chance. But that first Super Bowl, honestly, Norwood makes that field goal. There's a chance the Bills win a couple Super Bowls. I don't know if they win 4 consecutive, but I think that Washington team, that was just one of those teams where everything just came together. So I think Washington wins that one, but they might have been able to beat Dallas, because that second Super Bowl against Dallas, I remember Thurman Thomas fumbled the ball and the whole team just fell apart. But if you talk about NFL history, the Bills did have a dynasty, and it should be remembered as one of the greatest runs in the history of the NFL. It should be looked at as a positive, not negative. But I know former Bills players get together and they're like, it's kind of a bittersweet thing, but it should be something that should be. I don't know if a team's ever going to go to 4 straight again. So hopefully my Chiefs do, but yeah. The first game I ever went to was in 95. The first 2 players I saw were defensive tackle. Defensive tackle, safety, Pat Williams and Ted Washington. They're 2 big. I remember Ted Washington big time. Ted Washington was massive. Defensive tackle or safety, Pat Williams. I'm drawing a blank on Pat Williams, but Ted Washington was enormous. If you don't remember, Ted Washington is the definition of a zero technique. No. I remember Pat Williams. I don't know why you have an S there. But Pat Williams is a massive defensive tackle. Ted Washington, there was some talk that Ted Washington was, I know that is now, but there was some talk that Ted Washington was a 400-pound dude. I think at one point in time he was listed like at 370 or something. That dude was massive. Massive. Pat Williams, not quite that big, but I think like 335, 240. What is a zero technique? Okay. In a 3, God, you know what? I would love. I wish I had my. You're right. He was. I have a whiteboard behind me. I would love to break it out and show you. But in a 3-4 defense, it's called 3-4 because you have 3 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers. The zero technique is that nose tackle who lines up under center. A lot of 3-4 teams have a nose tackle and defensive tackle and an end. But the old school 3-4, you had a zero tech who played the nose tackle, and his job was just to clog the middle. And then you have the defensive ends, and they played what's called a 5 technique. In a 3-4 defense, you have defensive tackles that play a 3 technique. and that's just right between the guard and the tackle, which would be the B gap. And where a nose tackle would try to shoot the A gap, which is between the center and the guard. I have a whiteboard behind me, Perry, and nothing would bring me more joy in the whole world to break down the old school 4-3-3-4 defense. I have an old video when the 49ers played the Chiefs, breaking down the Tampa 2 defense, because that was just something that I just been wanting to do for a while. The 49ers run more of a cover 3 than a Tampa 2, but I saw a lot of what the Tampa 2 defense was, because I wanted to do a video breaking down the Tampa 2 defense, which is completely different from the 3-4 defense. The way the NFL is switching right now is that the 3-4-4-3 is coming obsolete. And a lot of that's because teams play base nickel, but more and more teams are using kind of a hybrid 3-4-4-3. New England was one of the few teams that switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3, but basically just wanted 4 defensive linemen, but they really have kind of a not really set positions. They sort of just use positionless players. It's kind of funny because that's what basketball is. It used to be basketball. You had a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward, power forward, and a center. And, the point guard was a 1, and basketball's not that way anymore. It's kind of positionless players. You have a bunch of players that can do a bunch of different things. That's what the NFL is doing on the defensive side of the ball, is that you have players that just do different things. You have guys that can, stuff to run as a defensive end, but they can also drop back into coverage. I talked about L'Jarius Sneed earlier. That's why he's going to make so much money in free agency. That's why I don't know if the Chiefs can keep a guy like Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed, because Sneed's a guy that can play inside, outside, zone, man. If you watch the Chiefs on a regular basis, you'll notice Chris Jones lines up as the defensive end sometimes. He lines up he can line up as a tackle. He can line up as defensive end. When the Chiefs first drafted Chris Jones, he was drafted to be a defensive end in a 3-4 defense. He was a 5 technique, but he realized in order to make money, he had to lose weight, and he came into training camp. He lost 25 pounds and just went after the passer. And then the Chiefs, when they brought in Steve Spagnuolo, switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3 style. The last couple of years, the Chiefs have kind of quietly switched to a 3-4, but they get really creative with Chris Jones. So to answer your question, in a 3-4 defense, it would be the nose tackle, and his job is to just line up in front of the center and just clog the middle. So if only the Bills had the foresight to draft Reggie White in 84 and get Jerry Rice with their second pick in 85. Oh God, yes. So it was funny because Jerry Rice, a lot of people weren't even sure he was a first-round receiver. If I remember correctly, the Bengals had the 4th pick in the draft. They drafted a University of Miami receiver, Eddie Brown, who had a good career in the NFL. I could be wrong on the specifics, but I'm pretty sure it was Eddie Brown out of Miami. And he had a good career, but nowhere near Jerry Rice. But, he went to Mississippi Valley State, and people were really skeptical. Plus, he went to the combine, ran like a 4.7, and people are like, well, he doesn't have the NFL speed, plus the small school. But Bill Walsh saw something in him. And Reggie White, remember Reggie White went to the USFL. He was going to play, I forget which team that he was playing for, but he was part of the USFL deal. And so there was some concern that if you draft him, he may not even play in the NFL. But I say this with all due respect. I mean, Reggie White is like just a hair. To tell you the truth, Reggie White is best position because when he first played with the Eagles, his first year, he wore number 91. He played a defensive end in a 3-4 defense, and then Buddy Ryan became the head coach. put Reggie White as a defensive end in a 4-3 defense, and he was a 300-pound defensive end who had speed to go around the corner, which nobody ever seen before. Reggie White as an Eagle is probably the best defensive end I've ever seen. No disrespect to Bruce Smith, who I think is just amazing. But yeah, oh God, if the Bills did that, Jesus, who knows? Yeah. I think Rice, when right place where Bill Walsh could get the most. Yeah, so that was part of it, is that Jerry Rice just went to the right place because you had Joe Montana, you had an established offense. Freddie Solomon was a pretty good receiver. Dwight Clark had a really good career. Neither one of these guys is going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But if you remember in '84, that's one of the greatest teams of all time. If you watch my video, top 10 Super Bowl teams of all time, the '84 Niners is on that list, is one of the 10 best teams of all time. And then in '85, they draft, Jerry Rice. I don't remember why, but for some reason or another, the 49ers, I don't think they traded up, and I'd have to research this to make sure. But if I remember right, Rice was drafted, I think 16th. I don't think the Niners traded up, or for some reason or another, they weren't picking dead last in the draft. They were able to pick in the middle of the first round. I don't remember why. I don't think it was a trade. But Freddie Solomon had like 10 or 12 touchdown catches the year before. Dwight Clark was at the end of his career, but he was a really, really good player. Roger Craig actually played fullback in '84. They had a guy by the name of Wendell Tyler, a guy that I don't expect you to know. He had some really, really good years with the Rams. He was a Pro Bowl running back. But in '85, I think they drafted they drafted Rathman later. But Roger Craig, for his first couple of years, was actually a fullback. And then they drafted Rathman. They switched Roger Craig to running back just because he was so versatile. And then Wendell Tyler, he was actually, I think, 1,000-yard rusher for that '84 Niners team. But that was towards the end of his career. Great running, good running back. I think he had like 8,000 or 9,000 yards in his career. But not a guy that's going to be in camp. Not a guy that I don't expect you to know who he is. But Wendell Tyler is a really good running back. And he had Roger Craig blocking for him and a really good team. So when Rice came there, he didn't have to be the number one guy. But yeah. If you watch that video, the top 10 Super Bowl teams of all time, I talk about the '84 Niners. All four of their defensive backs made the Pro Bowl. They had Ronnie Lott. He was a corner at the time. Dwight Wright, I think it was. I can't remember the two safeties, but all four of those guys went to the Pro Bowl. Offensively, they just had a litany of really good players. But the '84 team, the one thing about the '84 team is that people don't understand is that it was a run-heavy team. They ran the ball a lot. It was a physical smash mouth team. They beat the '84 Bears in the NFC Championship game 28-0. Late in the game, they put Guy McIntyre, the guard, in the fullback just to kind of rub it in the Bears' face. So what the Bears do? Well, they drafted the Fridge and did the same thing. And so a little fun fact for you. But keeping in mind, the Bills would have held White's rights just like they held Jim Kelly's rights when they drafted him in '83. You're right. And that's another thing is that Jim Kelly played for the I think it was the Houston Ramblers, something like that. And supposedly it's one of the greatest games of all time where Jim Kelly against Steve Young in I think it was like LA Guns, or I want to say LA Guns, even though I know that's an 80s band for those of you who go down the 80s music rabbit hole. But I don't know if they would want to do that with Reggie White. But yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Jim Kelly was in USFL. Jim Kelly is the Houston Gamblers. You're right. Jim Kelly wanted nothing to do with Buffalo, even though he grew up in Pittsburgh. He loved Miami. He loved the Heat. He wanted nothing to do with Buffalo. He was happy to stay in Houston. But yeah, aka Guns N' Roses. So yeah, so like Guns. So the band LA Guns. I think one of those guys left to go with Guns N' Roses. But LA Guns, they had that song as I think Balladed Jane, and then like it blew up, and then next year they blew up, and I think one of those guys left for Guns N' Roses. I could be wrong about that. 80s Rabbit Hole. Now, yeah, Jim Kelly still lives in Buffalo. Jim Kelly fell in love with Buffalo. So he didn't want to go there. He went there, fell in love with it, and he still lives there. I followed some. I don't know if I followed Jim Kelly, but I followed some of the stories. He had like cancer in his jaw, and it was a rough procedure, but he's back to being okay. Thurman Thomas went up there. Bruce Smith went up there. A lot of former players that played for the Bills. That it's funny because like it before the Bills became a really good team in the 90s. That was like it was Green Bay and Buffalo. It was like, hey, we're gonna send you to this team if you don't shape up. And Buffalo is one of those rare cities where NFL players, after they retire, will go and live there. I remember last year, like in December, it was like some winter storm warning. They got like 5 feet of snow in like 6 hours or something crazy. I live in Kansas City. I live in Kansas City, and right outside of here, it's snowing. And by the way, here's another fun fact for you. When the Chiefs play the Dolphins, it's going to be 20 degrees colder than when the Bills play the Steelers in Buffalo. So why I don't move to a warmer climate, I don't know. I'm not built for the cold, but right now it's a winter advisory. It's 20 degrees outside and it's snowing. It sucks here. So yeah, it was something crazy. It was like in 5 hours, and they showed the snowflakes. It looked like the size of baseballs. It was insane. And I'm like, why would you want to live there? But you know what? I actually went to Green Bay. I actually went to Green Bay. I won't go into the whole story, but I was in Green Bay for several weeks in February, the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. Even like I don't know why I couldn't figure it out, but Green Bay, the reason why it gets so cold is because it's surrounded by water, just like Tampa Bay surrounded by water. But you're up north. And once the wind catches the water, like it doesn't matter what you're wearing, you're cold. But Green Bay is such a wonderful place. You go there in the springtime, it is beautiful. When I say spring, like I'm talking May. Like in April, it's still like in like 10, 20 degrees. But like people say like, hey, I go on vacation, I'll even lock my house. I would never do that, by the way. But people who live in Green Bay, like they don't. It's such a great place to live. Like they don't worry about locking their doors, and it's beautiful when it's warm, but it's so insanely cold up there. I didn't know Thurman Thomas married a woman from Buffalo. I think there are videos of yeah. Yeah, Buffalo is one of those rare places. Like even though the weather's bad, so I used to work with a guy. He was a big Bills fan. He lived up there, and he said that I had no idea, but he said that what they used to do is they used to go to Canada, to Toronto. They would just drive up to Canada. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it's not that far away. We'd go to Toronto and pick up chicks, yeah, there's Buffalo's a place that a lot of NFL players love living there. Yeah, so Perry is in Canada. He's probably thinking like, hey, Dan, where you're at, I'd wear a T-shirt and shorts. Negative 25 today, negative 14 right now. Yeah. Yeah, my computer says 20. I have not been outside today because the snow is coming down. It's that wet stuff that I want nothing to do with. So Tuesdays are kind of weird. So what I do is I wake up really early. I knock out the rest of my video. I set up the live stream. I sent multiple messages to George, like what I was going to do. Of course, he didn't show up today. And then I took a nap and then set up the live stream. So yeah. Are you in Buffalo, the Trek reviewer? Because if you are, I had a buddy of mine, and I didn't even thank him. I need to do that. I'll probably do that as soon as I end the live stream. He sent me a bunch of pictures from the Chiefs Chargers game, and that was awesome. He sent me a ton of pictures. There's a lot of red there, and he couldn't have picked a better time to go to. Couldn't have picked a better time to go to LA. I don't know if he's still there or not, to be honest with you. I didn't text him back. I asked him if he'd send me tons of pictures. He did, and I didn't even say thank you. But if you're in Buffalo, if you can send like any pictures at all. I actually was down in Dallas when they were building Jerry World. And I took some pictures at the time. And then I what it was is that I was traveling down to the Fort Worth, Dallas area. So you live 1.5 hours of Buffalo right now. If you can send me any pictures, my social media links are below. I would love to see it because I don't know too much about the Bill Stadium and what they're doing. I knew that they were building one, but I didn't know it was in 2026, and I didn't know it was that soon. So that's actually so it's funny because the Chiefs made some massive renovations to Arrowhead, but it's one of the older stadiums. It's a beautiful stadium, don't get me wrong, but there was a tax bill, I want to say about 10 years ago, to put a dome. That way we could get a Super Bowl. And it wasn't even, it failed dramatically. And there has always been talk about a downtown stadium because Kansas City's stadium is like, it's kind of weird. So they kind of like in the middle of nowhere. But it's an older stadium. So like if the Bills get a stadium, there could be talk about the Chiefs, but the Chiefs did do massive renovations to their stadium. Smart man. I love South Carolina. I went to Fort Jackson for basic in AIT, and I love the area. Denver Gator is on the Alabama-Florida border. I think he's on the Alabama side, to tell you the truth. He may be on the Florida side. I can't remember. But South Carolina is a beautiful place, man. I love South Carolina. I love South Carolina. You're going to be in a good area, man. So football needs to play outdoors. I agree with you completely. I was not wanting a dome at Arrowhead. I actually, when I was when I first got season tickets, the Chiefs had that old school artificial turf. And one of my high school field trips, I won't tell the whole story, but I got to go down on it and I got to walk on it. It was really spongy, but I remember thinking, God, I wouldn't want to fall down on this stuff. But I mean, I'll tell you what, so what happened is when the Chiefs got Joe Montana, they switched to grass immediately. And they spent a lot of money on a grounds crew. That was one thing. The Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt, like everything was going to be top of the line. But I think Arrowhead still uses grass. I could be wrong on that, but I 100%. I don't like the field grass. Never been a fan of it. Wasn't a fan of artificial turf, but yeah, I 100% agree with you, and I think the elements should be part of it. So a new stadium in Buffalo is right across the road from the current one. Do you know? I knew that they were building one. I don't think it's a dome. Is that correct, or is it a dome? You'd have to let me know because there was talk about Buffalo moving to Toronto, and then they nixed that. And part of that agreement was that new stadium was going to be built like in the next, I think, 10 years. But I actually didn't know it was going to be 2026. I don't even know if it's not a dome. Good. I don't think it should be. I think Bills fans would love it. The Finns will have a hard time with the cold against Kansas City. Absolutely. It's kind of funny though. I was watching, let me see if I can pull this up real fast here. I don't want to wait. So I was watching Bills Dolphins, right? And they're naming all the players and everything. And it was kind of funny because the defensive players for for Buffalo, Greg Rousseau, University of Miami, Ed Oliver, University of Houston. Was it Daquan Jones? Daquan Jones went to Penn State. Leonard Floyd, University of Georgia. And then they had, what was it? Terrell Bernard, he went to University of, I thought it was right here. I think he went to the University of Clemson. It doesn't say here. I'm almost Baylor. That's in Waco. That's in Texas. Doesn't get cold there. Christian Benford. Where did he go to school? Oh, he went to school in Villanova. But it was kind of funny because a lot of, if you looked at the Dolphins players, a lot of their front seven played in cold weather, and Tyreek Hill, of course, spent several years in Kansas City. So it's kind of funny, but once you live down in an area, once you practice, spend a whole season down there, it's different, and it's going to be single digits here in Kansas City. The weather report I saw was 9, but I don't think it's going to be snow. But it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold, and it is an advantage for Kansas City. Arrowhead is an iconic stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. It's beautiful. But there's been a lot of talk over the last several years of a downtown. A lot of people want a downtown Kansas City stadium. They built the racetrack in Kansas City, Kansas. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there was talk about the Chiefs playing Kansas City, Missouri. There was talk about moving to Kansas City, Kansas. A lot of people were mad about that. I personally don't get it. It's like 15 miles away. It's not that big of a deal, but there was also talk for a long time about Dome. But like, not only was the Dome failed? It failed by a large margin. Now Clark Hunt is one of the richest owners in the NFL. He's like, yeah, I'm good. Fun fact: the Chiefs owner lives in Dallas and is worth more than Jerry Jones. So that's kind of a fun fact. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, and I guarantee you'll see a lot of the '90s Bills players in those luxury boxes. Makes a lot of sense. That's just smart. They're supposed to be 20 mile an hour. I didn't know it was supposed to be windy. I actually didn't know, but one of the things about this game that I think is a big benefit to the Steelers is that I think the only way the Steelers win that game, or at least have a chance, is they got to run the ball and control the clock, shorten the game, and then you have to capitalize on Allen's mistake. Don't get me wrong, Allen's got a strong enough arm. I remember Drew Bledsoe saying, "You'll never hear me say the wind knocked the ball down," but there was one game in particular the wind knocked the ball down. It was something crazy. It was like a 40 mile an hour wind. But it'll be interesting. Chiefs are playing Saturday. The Chiefs will be playing Saturday night. I don't have the live stream set up, but I will have it set up. The Chiefs are playing Saturday night. Unfortunately, you do have to sign up for Peacock. I'm double checking because I looked yesterday and they didn't have it on. I use YouTube TV. It's a streaming service. So like if you do play-by-play, I'm like a little behind because of the stream. Because I use a streaming service, supposedly I don't get the game. I have to sign up for Peacock just to get that game, which I'm really pissed about. So the Lions versus the Scam Rams, Saturday or Sunday? It's Sunday. The Rams are playing Sunday night, and that's a game I would have had on Monday. But let me get the official here. If you watch my video, I have the in order. But the way it's going to work is that Saturday, the first game is going to be Cleveland versus Houston Saturday afternoon, and then Saturday night, Miami against Kansas City. Pittsburgh, Buffalo's the early game, Green Bay, Dallas the afternoon, and then LA, Detroit Saturday night, and then Monday night, Philly and Tampa Bay. It's not Allen's arm defense has to watch, it's his legs. And that's one thing I do like. Pittsburgh has some speed. If I remember correctly, I think Watt is not going to play. I may be mistaken about that, but I think TJ Watt is out. Yeah, he's out. But the Steelers have a pretty fast and athletic front seven. So I mean, they have enough pieces in play. But bottom line, what you really want to do is you Josh Allen's going to have a turnover. Okay, you got to capitalize on that. But if the Steelers can't run the ball, they won't win this game. And what you want to do is that you want to limit possessions, have an Allen mistake, and that's how you win the game. But I do like Buffalo to win. I do like Pittsburgh to cover 10, though. I think out of all the games, which one would I want to bet on the most? I would probably bet on Pittsburgh plus 10 because I think Pittsburgh makes it a close game. Allen will have a turnover. The Steelers will be able to run the ball. The only question is Josh Allen make enough plays against? And by the way, the Steelers defense without Watt is so different. And when I made the video, Watt was questionable, so I didn't check the line. But I'll have it Friday. If you tune back in Friday, we'll go over the line again. So Allen will have to put the Bills on the back to prove he's a future quarterback in his playoff. James Cook had a great season, really came on towards the end of the year. I think that they'll lean on James Cook and the running game a little bit. But ultimately, Allen is going to have to make some plays. I mean, Allen will have to make some plays. The Steelers' defense is different without TJ Watt. It really is. But it's a veteran unit. They got two really good running backs, and that's how they're going to win the game. So, guys, it's been a little over 2 hours. Again, I apologize. I just got the notice 30 minutes before the show started that Riley wasn't going to be able to join me. Hopefully, I can lock him down later on down the line, but. One of the struggles of doing YouTube is that sometimes guests say that they're going to show up, or sometimes they show up late. It happens. I apologize. I'm working on trying to get a guest. I'm trying to get Pete from Pete's Takes, a Dolphins fan, to join me on Friday. I don't have that confirmed. Hopefully that can pan out. But any final thoughts, questions before I go ahead and end the stream here? I think McDermott should be on the hot seat if the Bills don't make the Super Bowl. I think he is on the hot seat. I really do. If they don't make the Super Bowl, and that means they lose sometime in the playoffs, they moved around offensive pieces. Keep in mind, like even if they lose to Pittsburgh, he's coming back next year. But if he loses to Pittsburgh, or if he loses in the divisional round, it's not inconceivable to say that he's not on the hot seat. And Cook's played lights out, and Leonard Fournette's always had a world of talent. I think that's a good spot for him up in Buffalo. I mean, this is a big dude who can run. And I think it's last year in Tampa Bay, he had something like 76 receptions. He just, I remember he put on a lot of weight, and I have no idea why. But I mean, when I watched him play last week, he looks like he's in NFL shape. So I think it's a good 1-2 punch. But ultimately, Allen has to make some plays in order for the Bills to advance. They're a 10-point favorite against Pittsburgh without its best player. So, I mean, they really should win that game. But what do they do after that game? Because you know the way I have it working out is that they're going to play Kansas City, a thorn in their side in the playoffs, but a team that they're able to beat during the regular season. What happens if the Chiefs come up to Buffalo and beat the Bills handily in Buffalo? That would be interesting. So we'll have to wait and see. Any final thoughts, questions, concerns before I end the live stream? Yeah, I mean, Leonard Fournette's done this in the past. I mean, this is a dude who's 240, 250, somewhere in that range, and he can run. I mean, he's got speed. He's a big dude. I always loved Leonard Fournette. I always loved Leonard Fournette. I remember he had that really good year with Tampa Bay. Came to training camp like 20, 25 pounds overweight. Never lost the weight. Didn't look like he was in shape. I don't know if it was injuries or what, but he can return kicks, and he's a big dude. So yeah. I remember he had that great year when the Bucs won the Super Bowl, and he came back and he was like, and I remember it was a big issue, and I was like, nah, he'll lose the weight. It's not that big of a deal. Because here's the deal. If you're 260, dropping 20 pounds is not that big of a deal. I'm 170, and I've lost 30 pounds in my life twice, and I did it in about 3 months. So if you enter training camp at 260, getting down to 240 is not that big of a deal. I remember the Chiefs had a guy, Tamba Ali, used to play at 260, and he came into training camp at like 290, and Andy Reid said, don't worry about it. He'll be 260 opening week, and he was. But Leonard Fournette never lost the weight, and he looked big. He looked slow. He looked out of shape. I mean, and I don't know if it was an injury thing. I have no idea, but he looks good. And Leonard Fournette is a guy like people. He was the number one player coming out of high school. If he didn't get, he had some injury issues, but he could have won a Heisman at one point in time. Love Leonard Fournette. Oh God, Derrick Henry in Buffalo makes actually. It's funny because I mentioned Tampa Bay, Baltimore was mentioned. I mentioned my Chiefs, but Derrick Henry in Buffalo with James Cook makes a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense. Here's the issue: he would have to. I can't speak for Derrick Henry. Would he want to take a pay cut? And that's a tough situation. And keep in mind, saying, I think all of us would say, hey, I would take $3 million instead of $5 million to play for a Super Bowl, but they're not in those shoes. If Derrick Henry has to give up a couple $1 million to play for Buffalo or Baltimore, Kansas City or Dallas, is it really worth it? Because if you're Derrick Henry, you only got a few years left. This may be your best opportunity to make as much money as you possibly can. He's not getting a contract anywhere close to what he got with Tennessee. He's not making that type of money. But is there a chance a team's going to give him like what Saquon Barkley got, a 1 year, like $10 million deal? That's definitely possible. But I don't see the Bills doing that. I definitely don't see Buffalo doing like a 1 year, $10 million deal, but there may be an NFL team out there that does that, where Buffalo may say, we'll give you a 1 year, $3 million deal. Well, $7 million is a lot of money, man. With Cook, Henry, and Allen, the Bills could break out of the old. Oh, that would be so much fun, man. That would be so much fun. I would love it. And don't be, and honestly, they got the new offensive coordinator. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Allen's run less, but he has 15 rushing touchdowns this year. And that's a good thing. But if I'm a Bills fan, I want to see Allen run a lot less during regular season, but more in the playoffs. But I don't want him. If you're up by 14 against Pittsburgh, I don't want to see Allen run the ball at all. You want to keep him fresh for the divisional round because you're probably going to play Kansas City. Henry could do well at the Pats or Cowboys. I think both. Well, the Patriots, they really loved Ezekiel Elliott. They just glowed about him. And they got Ramondre Stevenson, who they really, really like. He's a big running back with a lot of speed. He had a bunch of injuries this year. But if Ezekiel Elliott stays in New England, I think he signed a 2-year deal. I could be mistaken on that. Then I don't think he'll be at the Pats. And then keep in mind now with Vrabel being fired, I want to see what happens in New England. Belichick leaves. Who knows what will happen? But, yeah. I do not think Brady is a lock for the Bills' offensive coordinator job next year. No, I don't think so either. I think that don't get me wrong. If they put up 45 against Pittsburgh and then 42 against Kansas City, yeah, but is he a lock? No, he's not a lock. he's not a lock. And there's going to be some big names out there. I take a look, Eric Bieniemy. Who knows what's going to happen in Washington? Mike Kafka, who's the offensive coordinator with the Giants. Everybody's jumping ship there. I don't know who the offensive coordinator is in Tennessee, but I mean, there's some names out there. And then take a look at what Baltimore did. They brought in the offensive coordinator from Georgia. There could be a college name. So, yeah. Frank Reich would make a lot of sense. Yeah. I personally think Frank Reich's going to go to Philly, but Frank Reich going to Buffalo, I mean, I think he would love it there. Him and Jim Kelly still get along really, really well. And I think Frank Reich's a guy that's kind of interesting. I don't think he gets a head coaching job this turn around, but I expect him to land on an NFL team as either quarterbacks coach or offensive coordinator. Buffalo would make a lot of sense. I have him going to Philly as either the quarterbacks coach or offensive coordinator, but Buffalo makes a lot of sense. Speaking of Eric Bieniemy, do you think he'll get a head coaching job? I have no idea. There was a point where he looked like a great candidate because Sam Howell was playing lights out, and then he was benched, and it's hard to say. Out of the jobs that are available, I mean, I think Vrabel becomes head coaching candidate number one. I think Ben Johnson's a big name. Mike McDonald, he's the defensive coordinator with Baltimore. Harbaugh is always a possibility. I would be shocked if Antonio Pierce didn't get the job with the Raiders, but who knows what they're going to do. He's a guy I think that could be interviewed, but I'm going to be honest with you. If he didn't get one in Kansas City, he's not going to get one now. I'm looking at Pittsburgh, and I'm stealing this idea from Keys, who's been on my show several times. He's the first one to bring it up, but a guy like Eric Bieniemy in Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense as the offensive coordinator. I don't think he'll get a job. I really don't, but I think he'll get some interviews. And don't be surprised if Washington interviews him for the head coaching job. But I don't think he will get one this year. I really don't, unfortunately. I thought out of all this time in Kansas City, I thought he deserved one. But after what happened in Washington, I'm going to say no. But he'll get interviewed, but I don't think he gets a job. But landing in Pittsburgh as the offensive coordinator, don't be surprised he ends up in Buffalo. He would be an interesting choice. You know, the Bills could say, hey, look, I want a guy that, from Kansas City. If keep in mind, if they can't beat Kansas City in the playoffs, and that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So, guys, check out my picks video. I'm still battling with Facebook, so I've been fired from Facebook. I'm still battling there, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. If you DM me, send me a friend request, DM me. I basically accept all friend requests. Just notice if you send me any form of pornography at all, you will be immediately blocked and reported. I will not tolerate it. That's not a joke. I don't like it, and I will not put up with it. But if you send me a friend request, I almost always say yes. You can DM me stuff outside of football as well. Do check out my picks video, and I will be live back on Friday. I may or may not have guests. We'll have to wait and see. Bills only have 3 defensive linemen under contract next year: Oliver, Miller, and Groot. I didn't know that. That might be a situation where you have to address in the draft. You could also, I mean, to tell you the truth, Sean McDermott has a long history as the coach there. I know Frazier left this all season, and him and Dable didn't end up good terms. But I think Buffalo would be a nice place to attract some free agent defensive linemen as well. And this is a good draft. This is a good draft for defensive tackles, kind of an underrated draft for defensive tackles because quarterbacks and wide receivers are the big positions. There's some good offensive tackles. I saw one mock draft for 6 offensive tackles went in the first round. I don't think it's going to be that many, but defensive tackle is kind of an underrated position in this draft, and there are some good ones. So the Bills are going to be in a position in order to draft one. I also think that it could be a good move in free agency if you're a free agent defensive lineman. Nobody wants to see this. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Buffalo can afford Chris Jones, but if they can make the contract work, then it would make a lot of sense. But I mean, keep in mind, they have a ton of money going to Von Miller, Stephon Diggs, and Josh Allen. So I think Chris Jones, the Buffalo, would not be feasible from a financial standpoint. But if they can make the contract work, it would make a lot of sense because he would fit that scheme awesome. Speaking of Frazier, do you think he'll get another defensive coordinator job? I saw him on the NFL Network. He looked really good on the NFL Network. So what it is that he stepped away. It was kind of an undisclosed reason. I'm kind of wondering if just McDermott's kind of a dick or something. I have no idea. But he looked really comfortable and really good on TV. I think he's going to stay doing TV with the NFL Network personally, but it's hard to say. Miller might take a pay cut for next year after not getting it. So here's the drill. I remember when they signed him, I remember thinking it was a bad move because he signed like a 5-year massive deal. And the deal that they signed him, it's almost impossible to make him to cut him or trade him. And it's a long-term deal for a dude who's, I think, 34, 35. His best days are behind him, even though at times he's played pretty good and he's missed several games. So I remember thinking it's a bad deal. Can you convince him to do that? Sure. Matthew Stafford, they talked to Matthew Stafford at the beginning of this year, like, hey, listen, we need to get you some help on the offensive line. Can you take a pay cut? He's like, no. That contract that he signed, it's a great contract for Von Miller. It's a bad contract for the Bills. If I'm Von Miller, I'd play hardball because if you can't really cut him because of the dead cap money. He's got kind of all the power there. I think it's more likely that the Bills could trade Diggs, to be honest with you. And I think Diggs could have a market. And I think Diggs could be a guy that Buffalo may want to move on from. I'm speculating here because he's his antics on the sidelines. I'm told that in the locker room they love him, but I know he had some issues in Minnesota. Like Minnesota's more than happy to get rid of him, and it could be the same situation. I mean, he is 30. His play has dropped a little bit, but he's still a legitimate number one receiver in the NFL. So Leonard Floyd did do a great job. I always liked Leonard Floyd. I remember when I loved him coming out of Georgia because like he did everything at Georgia, and it didn't really pan out in Chicago. But when he got to the Rams, it was like the light bulb went off. And in Buffalo, he's done a fantastic job. I wasn't aware of that, but if the cap, yeah. If the cap space, if the cap space for Diggs is too much, then you're probably stuck with both Diggs and Miller. The way I understand the Miller contract, and Trek Viewer, you might know better than I do, but the way I understand it, it's a bad contract for the Bills, but it's great for Von Miller. A lot of times people think like, oh, my guy will take a cut from my team. That's not necessarily the case. So. Guys, I'm going to end it, but thank you so much for tuning in to Trek Reviewer, man. I really hope to see you again. I'll be on Friday, and I also will do play-by-play for the Chiefs playoff game, even if I have to buy Peacock for a month, which I'm really pissed about, but I will do it because I do want to see the game. So, guys, I hope to see you back all on Friday, and do watch my picks video. It's really good.